tax season. It's dreaded for lots of Americans, myself included, because I know tax season for me was particularly hard this year. And that statement can apply to almost anybody because the tax system is a little hard to navigate. I want you to think, how much money did you spend on getting your taxes prepared this year? Or how much time did you spend filling out forms to get your taxes done this year? And think about how much that would total up to for all of the people who have to fill out taxes in the country. Well, an estimate for that statistic would be it would take around 6 billion total hours for everybody to get through with their taxes, and it would take around 12 billion total dollars for everybody to finish preparing their taxes. And I know that sounds ridiculous because that's not even including the amount of taxes that need to be paid. But that problem wouldn't exist without tax companies lobbying the government for their own special interests instead of the interests of the people. Now, I myself have been interested in this for a couple of years now. I know it hits particularly hard this year now that I've had to file my own taxes for the first time, and it's very troublesome. But it doesn't have to be troublesome. And a good way to think about that is to consider other countries that have much simpler systems. Countries like New Zealand, for example, which just essentially send you a check or a bill. They keep track of certain things, like, say, if you get free parking at work, that counts towards your income. If your job gives you health insurance, that counts towards your income. And if you buy a house, you wouldn't get a deduction from your taxes for the mortgage. But in the end, for the people that use the system, they'll all say they think the system's very simple. They don't spend much time a year worrying about taxes. Generally, they just click a couple boxes and their taxes are done for the year, and their system brings in more money per capita than the American system does. And now there's other countries too, like Japan, which would literally just send in the mail, this is the amount we think you've earned this year, this is the amount we think you owe, here's how much we withheld, here's how much your refund will be. It'll be in your bank account on X date. And they just do it automatically. The people don't have to worry about it. Now, if you wonder why that is, that's because the tax companies are paying millions and millions of dollars every year to keep the system intentionally confusing in order to make it so that they can profit the most money, they can get as many people as they can to use their tax preparation services, whatever the case may be. For example, this diagram right here is a diagram of some legal actions between Congress and a company called Intuit. Intuit owns TurboTax, which is it is the biggest tax preparation service in the world. I use TurboTax this year to make my process a little bit easier. That's part of where this contention started because I spent like $250 just to get my form in, not even counting the thousands I had to spend. So, here it shows, it starts off with an IRS restructure commission, right? And they decide that they want to make a system to help e-filing for free. And that's cool. Amendments turn down the free proposal, so they change that decision somehow, and it becomes worse than it was. The vice president revives the tax software proposal, and the IRS releases the first stage of formal procurement. Then we go back up again. Okay, there's hearings about it. The IRS commissioner commits under oath that he wants to change the system. Well, then the Treasury Secretary declares that tax preparation guy needs to find a new line of work, and then Bush proposes the IRS system be sent back to Congress. Well, the government pledges not to compete in exchange for commitment to serve the needy, right? The government wants to create a free system for people to file so that people who don't have the extra money don't have to spend hundreds to get it prepared. And then that gets broadly attacked by Congress. It gets turned down. They take one more step in the right direction, and nobody hears from it again through Congress. And the reason of that is because Intuit, this company, is spending, as of 2023, $1.8 million on the first half of the tax season just for federal congressional interests. And what that means is they've given $1.8 million to congressmen in exchange for saying, hey, we'll support you with X money if you make it so that we can still profit off of taxes. And finally, If you think that is bad about our tax system, the worst thing I think about our tax system is the way that the highest earners have the highest deductions from their tax system. For example, somebody who is very wealthy and has children and they want to allocate a certain amount of money for their children. Well, what they can do is they can say that these children are doing work for them, underneath them in a family business. And because of that, it allows them to deposit, I think, up to $13,000 a year into their account without being subject to certain federal taxes. There's also a clause where if you are coming to tax preparation season and you have a lot of real estate and you want to reduce the amount of assets you're being taxed on, you could sell off a property, make a whole bunch of money back, and reduce the amount of money that you have to pay in taxes. As well as this, if you're a business owner, you can contribute so many different things to business expenses. You could take a week-long vacation in Italy, have a business meeting, and say that that whole vacation was just a business trip and deduct a lot of expenses from that from your taxes. You could buy a Mercedes SUV, a nice G-Wagon SUV, and you could say, oh, well, it weighs X amount of pounds, so it's a commercial vehicle, and I can deduct that from my taxes. There's just the loopholes in the system exist so that only if you're moving enormous sums of money do you benefit greatly and have your taxes reduced. And that in turn makes it so that regular citizens generally pay their full amount. I made only $12,000 this year and I paid $2,000 in taxes. But someone who would make a couple $1,000,000 wouldn't have to pay that big of a percentage of their money. In conclusion, the American tax system as a whole is somewhat broken. I don't think it works well. I think it's clear why it doesn't work well. It's companies using private interests. And if you think this is bad, there are a few things you can do. Primarily, I would suggest you take interest in your local elections, in your state elections, in your national elections, and try your very best to fight against corruption. I know it seems difficult, but there are candidates out there that will not secede to the business's desires more so than their citizens. And then also, if you're feeling particularly ambitious, you can go organize a protest and demonstrate to the government your displeasure with their actions. Because in reality, what they're doing is selling out their citizens' interests in exchange for money. And it's individual people within Congress that are doing that, which means it's within our control to stop that. Thank you for your time.